Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We are presented by Full Press Coverage. If you've been watching the show, listening to the show, you know that. Check out fullpresscoverage.com's website. They got tons of great stuff on. No reason to not check it out. Some of our brothers and sisters podcasts are on that site, including some that Sap does too, because he seems to do podcasts for every sport. I think he's doing a NASCAR one next week, possibly. But find us there. Find us wherever podcasts are found. Sap, you and I don't get paid a ton of money to do this show, so we're not going to be able to buy any teams in the near future. But, we can dream, and Forbes wants to help with that dream. So they put out exactly what the price tag would be should we want to purchase one of our favorite teams. Again, slightly out of our price range. But it's fun to dream, and it's fun to think about, hey, maybe the podcast blows up and we can buy him. You never know. But Sap, were you surprised? First of all, just to get it out of the way, the top team was the Dallas Cowboys, just in case anybody was wondering. No, that's no surprise to anybody.
That's no surprise.
Worth $5.7 billion. Congratulations to Jerry Jones. He really needs that money. The Yankees were number 2, valued at $5.25 billion. And then the basketball team came in at number 3. Sap, were you surprised that it was the New York Knicks who are the most valuable basketball franchise? And were you surprised that they were the 3rd most valuable franchise in all of sports?
I wasn't surprised that they were the most valuable franchise in the NBA, but I was surprised that they were number 3 overall. And they're not that far behind both the Yankees and Cowboys. Like you said, the Cowboys $5.7 billion, the Yankees $5.25 billion, and then you've got the Knicks at $5 billion. I mean, the Knicks, they're going to make the playoffs this year. There'll be some playoff games. Their value may go up. The Yankees are struggling this year, and the Cowboys haven't been to the conference finals in 25 years. So maybe when we revisit this list next year, the Knicks will be the most valuable franchise in all of sports. I doubt that would happen. The Cowboys and Yankees, to me, are in a different category than everyone else. But I wasn't surprised that they were number 1 in the NBA, but I was surprised that they were 3rd overall. But part of it is they also own Madison Square Garden, which is still a prime piece of real estate. One of the most famous arenas in the world. They own the Madison Square Garden network as well.
Right.
In addition to the Rangers, now they separate the Rangers and the Knicks franchises. And this is all run by Jim Dolan, a complete boob, who was gifted this empire by his father, Charles Dolan, who
it really is what it is, an empire.
It's Lucky Sperm Club, and he was given this. His father, Charles Dolan, founded Cablevision, which they sold, I believe, 14 years ago, and now they've got all this. And Jim Dolan, is just like I said, he's a boob. He fired his president and general manager of the Rangers last week because they didn't agree with a tweet that he had the organization send out that they were, all bent out of shape about an event that happened against the Washington Capitals. So he had talked about an authoritarian, a dictator, whatever you want to call him. Like,
it's very sensitive.
Very sensitive. I mean, the players are trained a certain way to speak. You cannot say anything bad about the organization or the teams. The broadcasters get called on the carpet. I mean, Marv Albert no longer does games because he was critical of the team. But Marv Albert, I make a case, is the greatest basketball play-by-play man in history, and no longer does the games because he was critical of a team that, quite frankly, for the last 20 plus years, it sucked. So again, location. If you're Jim Dolan, a complete idiot, you own the New York Knicks. Congratulations. You get the 3rd most valuable franchise in all of sports.
Yeah, Sap, look at the top 5 teams. We already said the top 3 are Cowboys, Yankees, Knicks, Barcelona in soccer, and Real Madrid, also another soccer team in Spain. Of those 5, the Knicks and the Cowboys have not been particularly good, and yet they are firmly entrenched in that top 5. All those other teams have been, the Yankees are the Yankees. Barcelona and Real Madrid are consistently 2 of the best soccer clubs in the world. But here you have the Knicks, who haven't made it out of the first round except for one time in the past almost 30 years. And the Cowboys, who you mentioned, haven't been to the conference finals since what, 95?
95. Yeah. It's been a long time.
It's incredible. It's like their value is sky high despite themselves.
The Cowboys are really the Kardashians of sports, right? They're just famous for being famous. They remain
You're
relevant.
right. But
Right? They
why?
remain relevant. It's the logo. It's Jerry Jones is a master marketer, and I love Jerry Jones. I really do. Look, his first 5 years as owner, they won 3 Super Bowls, and the theory there was he had to borrow money and scrape together $160 million. I mean, who scrapes $160 million together? But you get the idea. They put as many pieces together to buy the team that the first 5 years he wasn't involved in football. He let Jimmy Johnson and the football people run things. He was so invested in the business side of things. And once that started making money, he decided to get involved in the football side of it. And since Jimmy Johnson left, they did win 1 Super Bowl, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team. And then since then, they've been, mediocre, to say the least, on the field, but they've been making tons of money off the field. They're glamorous. It's kind of like the Lakers. The Lakers will dip and not be very good, and their franchise still remains very valuable. But at
they're
least
in
the
LA.
Lakers, but they're in LA, and also
And I
in
know
basketball,
Dallas is huge, but it's not LA or New York.
it's a national brand. They'll see basketball and football have an advantage over hockey and baseball. They're national brands. Like, there's no national brand in the NHL. There really isn't. I mean, maybe north of the border, Toronto and Montreal are national brands in Canada, but they still have 7 teams in Canada in the NHL. Baseball, there's a lot of valuable franchises. Outside of the Yankees, they're all regional. I mean, the Red Sox are popular, the Giants, the Cubs. You get my point. But the Dodgers, obviously. But the Yankees
pale in
are
comparison
the one
to the
national
Yankees.
brand. That's the one national, but that's international. You see Yankees hats all over the world. But the Lakers, at least, the Lakers go from being either really great or really bad. There's never any kind of middle ground with them, right?
No, not really.
Like the Cowboys are still like, they go 8-8 and they dip into the playoffs, but then lose and go back to 8-8.
But to not get to where they have to the conference finals for that long is really bad. That football is not set up that way. You should have gotten there at least a couple of times in this time period. So, like, while they may never have a season like the Lions where they win 1 game or 0 games, and they're not picking 1 or top 5. The length of not being a Super Bowl contender is astounding, because it's like the way that football is set up is it should be cyclical, where teams are up, they're down, then they're back up, then they're down. The Cowboys have just been middle to bad for nearing on 30 years. That shouldn't happen. It's almost like you have to try to do that.
Yeah. Well, Jerry Jones has done a good job trying, but they remain relevant because they have an incredible fan base nationally. And look, growing up, the Patriots weren't very good around here, and I still remain a Patriots fan, but everybody always had like another team that you'd follow. And through the 70s, it was you were either a Steelers fan or a Cowboys fan. The Steelers have a national fan base as well, as do the Packers. I always think there's 3 teams in the NFL that have a national brand. It's the Packers, the Cowboys, and the Steelers. The Packers tend to be everybody's second favorite team because you can't really hate them. They're owned by the city or whatever their charter is, and they got the cool uniforms, and Green Bay's the size of Framingham. And Pittsburgh has got that blue collar, working class feel to it.
Well, these teams all won early titles, Sap.
And they all won. Right. Packers won the first 2 Super Bowls. Pittsburgh became the first team to win 3, and then a 4th Super Bowl. And Dallas won 5 of the first 30 Super Bowls. I mean, they and the 49ers by the mid-90s were the most successful franchises in football in terms of Super Bowls. Now, the Patriots have equaled the Steelers with 6. But also, you have to face facts that the Cowboys get the best ratings. They still do. I mean, the Cowboys can be a 6-10 team. This year, they're going to go to 17 games. And they're still on national TV a lot, still a couple of times a year on Sunday night, a couple of times on Monday. There'll be a Thursday game. There's the Thanksgiving game. They're always in that 425 window. They're just a national brand. Can't get rid of them. But they also bring the ratings with them. Fox and the rest of the network aren't putting them on there to do favors, although, Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft are the 2 most influential owners in the NFL, and they work on those TV deals that bring in billions of dollars. But the Cowboys still deliver the ratings, and that's all that matters. Look, Dak Prescott, we heard about his contract for 2 years. It was leading sports talk radio nationally. Oh, is Dak going to sign? And Dak to me is about the 12th best quarterback in football. There's 11 other quarterbacks I'd rather talk about than Dak Prescott, but that was like the lead story every day for nearly 2 years. Are they going to sign him? How much is he going to make? Are they going to franchise him again? That was
Right.
a lead story every day. And it's okay. He's the 12th best quarterback. Let's talk about the other 11 guys that are better.
Yeah, so you're right. They are a national brand, and actually, my family in Mexico, my wife's family,
Yeah.
my father-in-law is a Cowboys fan. All of his
Yep.
family is Cowboys fans.
Yep.
The Cowboys are very popular in Mexico, as are the Packers, as are the Steelers. You're right; those are the three
three
brands.
teams.
And so he grew up hating the Steelers and loving the Cowboys, and he still
Yep.
loves the Cowboys. And his brother is a huge Cowboys fan and flies from Mexico City to Dallas multiple times a year to see the Cowboys play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right. It's a national brand. So the Knicks have stumbled onto this. James Dolan. The next team in the NBA that was the most valuable surprised me a little bit, and I think it has a lot to do with recency bias. The Golden State Warriors come in at number 6 overall in these Forbes ratings, number 2 for NBA teams, valued at $4.7 billion. This is unbelievable, Sap. In 5 years, they've increased 147% in value, according to Forbes. They were purchased in 2010 for $450 million, and now they're worth $4.7 billion in 2021. Were you surprised how high the Warriors were on this list?
I thought they'd be high. I didn't think they'd be above the Lakers because the Lakers still have the biggest brand in basketball, right? And they have the biggest star in basketball. And you just look over the years of the players that have played for the Lakers, it's astounding. It really is. I mean, the Celtics and Lakers have 17 championships each, but in terms of star power, the Lakers, run circles around any other franchise. I mean, you look at the top 20 players in the history of the league, it feels like half of them played for the Lakers at some point. I mean, including LeBron James, who's in his third year, whether it's Kareem or Magic or Kobe, Shaq, all these great players
Jerry
that played
West.
for the Lakers. Jerry West, I didn't even mention him. Elgin Baylor. I mean, you just go back. Wilt, literally half the top 20 played for the Lakers at some point in their career. And many
Karl
of those
Malone
guys.
And Gary Payton ended up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody ends up with the Lakers at some point. And it's a great brand. The logo is cool. I mean, the nickname doesn't fit where they are, but I don't think they're changing that anytime soon.
They're the most popular team in the NBA.
Without question.
Nationally and internationally.
More so than anybody. Yes, more so than the Celtics and Golden State. Golden State has a spanking new arena in San Francisco.
Not Oakland now,
Not Oakland. And the San Francisco-Oakland market is huge. I think it's 5th or 6th in the country.
And the real estate in San Francisco is insane.
Through the roof. Right. So again,
owning the property there is crazy.
That's a big thing. And that kind of hurts the Celtics. They don't own TD Garden. The Bruins do. They're renters.
Nor do the Lakers own Staples Center.
It's kind of weird.
Isn't it independently owned? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The people that own Staples Center own part of the Lakers. It's kind of this weird thing. But the Clippers are valued very high as well, considering they've never been to a conference final. But they've got a real high profile owner in Steve Ballmer, and now you've got Kawhi and Paul George and title aspirations. But yeah, the arena has a lot to do with it. So that's where the value of the Knicks goes up, and that's where the value of Golden State goes up. And Golden State made it to 5 straight finals. They've got an impactful and influential player, Steph Curry. It's kind of surprised they're ahead of the Lakers, though. I think in the end,
just slightly.
The Lakers, slightly, and I think 10 years from now, the Lakers will just keep going up, and Golden State may flatline. Once Curry's gone, do we know they're going to remain relevant? The Lakers are always relevant because they can always sign free agents.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The new arena and the fact that it's in San Francisco certainly boosted it. I like I said, a little bit of recency bias. Lakers are only right behind them at $4.6 billion, so just the difference of a little bit there, 4.7 to 4.6 billion, a little bit in basketball terms. By the way, Steve Ballmer, owner of the Clippers, could buy all these teams without blinking.
Right.
So the Lakers were bought in 1979 for $20 million, and then the rest of the team was bought in 1998 for $268 million. Pretty good investment. Sap, next for the NBA teams, because those were 7 and 8. You scroll a little bit further down. as that's those top teams, the Knicks, the Warriors, and the Lakers are pretty solidly ahead of everybody else in the NBA. And you don't find another basketball team until you get down to, I believe, 23 overall, which is the Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
They're valued at $3.3 billion. Jerry Reinsdorf has owned that team for quite some time. They bought it in 1985 for $6.2 million. The Bulls, similar to the Knicks, I mean, they've been piss poor for mostly since Jordan left, with the exception of like 1 or 2 years when Derrick Rose was really good.
Right.
Is this just the fact that they're in Chicago?
I think it's Chicago, and I also think it's still the remnants of Michael Jordan. I really believe that their licensing product really sell. It's a cool product.
He still sells his freaking jerseys, his throwback jerseys.
He's still probably the most popular player in the league, and he hasn't played since 2003. Seriously, I mean, he gets $160 million a year or more from Nike for just endorsing a sneaker. He's still. I think he's still the biggest athlete in the United States. He's certainly the most well-respected. No one says anything bad about him. And if you do, you get attacked on Twitter or in the middle of the street. Just a really weird story. I go to this place in downtown Crossing in Boston, Primark, which is an Irish company. It's a store, sells clothing and house furniture and sheets and all this other cool stuff. And it's pretty inexpensive. It's the kind of stuff you buy sweatshirts, you get like 2 years out of it and you toss it, but it's inexpensive. It's almost like IKEA for clothing. So I go there, and as soon as you walk in, there's a little NBA section that they set up. And I did like a double take, because the two most prominent teams there were the Bulls and the Lakers, with very little Celtics. And this is in downtown Boston.
Oh, this is 2020, 2021, Sap. No one wants to celebrate what the Celtics have done this year.
No, but the Bulls, if half of the licensed product was Lakers, 45% was Bulls, and 5% was Celtics. I can see the Lakers. They're the defending champs, and their brand is huge.
And they have LeBron.
But the Bulls, and they have LeBron. The Bulls, but I think it's still the remnants of Michael Jordan. That's how much
it's a great logo. It's a great color scheme.
It's a great logo. It is.
But the team is basically, for their entire existence outside of Michael Jordan, sucked.
Yeah, before and after.
Really sucked.
Yeah. They should change their logo to Michael Jordan.
Seriously.
That would be apropos.
They had a period where they were the best team in the league for about 10 years. It was all with Michael Jordan. And before that, they were horrible. And after that, they've been horrible. Shows how good he was. He turned around a franchise that basically can't do it. But they do. Reinsdorf does own most of the United Center where they play, but it is an old arena. I think it opened in the early 90s.
Yep.
So I'm sure if they were to put some money into a new arena, potentially they would be worth even more. But it is remarkable that some of these teams like the Knicks and the Bulls are still so valuable despite having virtually no success.
But we're talking about the number 1 and the number 3 market. That means a lot. So you don't know what their cable deals are. The Celtics have a great deal with NBC Sports Boston. So, the league split the national TV money, which is substantial, but then that local TV money can be really big. And I know the Knicks have a great deal. They own Madison Square Garden Network, so they're kind of like paying themselves.
As the Yankees own Yes Network, the Red Sox own NESN. I mean, that's where you start to make some massive money, is when you own your own network.
Red Sox own 80% of NESN. The Red Sox put about $160 to $180 million a year in their pockets, strictly from NESN.
Yeah, and you have no choice. You can't opt out of NESN. It's like
no,
it comes with every cable package. There's no getting rid of it.
Comes with the sports package, and essentially, at the end of the year, you have cable, you have NESN, you spend about $50 a year on NESN. So just do the math. There's 4 to 5 million subscribers that have NESN in the New England region. That's $200 to $250 million a year that come in just for subscriptions. 80% goes to the Red Sox, 20% goes to the Bruins. That doesn't even include advertising and
right. By the way, they're not paying for any content because it's all their own content. So they're not paying people they're running the network for free.
And then NESN, during the day, it's like, Larry King, may he rest in peace or whatever. Someone's selling, prostate pills.
Yeah,
So they're
Shaq,
paying for
Shaq
that.
selling his like aluminum socks or
Yeah, and
icy
Brett
hot
Favre. Yeah, Brett Favre's
knee
doing
braces,
something with
the
knee
jeans
braces.
that
Yeah,
cure arthritis.
yeah. Tom Brady's concussion water. But yeah, so
um,
there's not a lot. I mean, they're paying Dave O'Brien, Dennis Eckersley, Jerry Remy, and then Jack Edwards doing hockey with that team, and yeah, so there's not a lot of expenses, and the product is the game. I mean, it doesn't.
right, products the
You
game or
got to
things
spend money to
surrounding the
produce the
game.
game.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
let's talk to this couple at Fenway. I mean, that's a free program. They're
yeah.
not paying anybody to do that.
No, it's a beautiful thing. When Henry bought the Red Sox, that's what he looked at as really the treasure of it. I mean, Fenway Park is a tourist attraction, or I think it's a tourist trap. I don't think it's a real fun place to go watch a baseball game, but it is the most famous place in Boston. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
it's number one tourist attraction in Boston,
which is crazy.
Not a close second.
No, I mean, with Faneuil Hall, where half the stores are out of business now because of COVID. So he looked at that, the park, just the land that it's on, how valuable that is. But then the park draws so many people. But then Nesson, he knew he at that time wasn't quite the numbers it is now, but 160 to 180 million a year, that's pretty good.
They own an entire street in downtown Boston.
Right, with the air rights that are endless. That's pretty tough to pull off. I'd like to do that in my neighborhood, just buy a street.
With signage on the Mass Pike. Full signage.
Yes.
Because the back of the arena is there. I mean, that's stuff that they don't have to pay for. They own it already.
It was very smart on their behalf when they bought the team. And I'm a huge Larry Lucchino fan because he's the guy you need in an organization.
He's the dick.
Perfect
like
guy,
we talked about
right?
last podcast, Jimmy Butler. He's the dick. He's
the dick of the Red Sox. Well, I met him several times. I got on great with him, I think, because we have the
both Italian,
that's at the end of our name. And I, I really love talking with him. We had him on the Herald countless times, Herald Radio. And but you need that guy. But he was so smart, understanding. Let's warm up to Mayor Tom Menino, right? Because whatever the Red Sox wanted, they got. Robert Kraft didn't do the same thing. Yeah, still to this very day, Robert Kraft didn't get that because he didn't warm up to Menino and kind of circumvented him. And Menino would always hold that against Robert Kraft. And Menino, when he was mayor of Boston, again, may he rest in peace, he was a very effective mayor. He ran that city kind of like a mob boss. Like, you don't want to get on his bad side. You think Aaron Rodgers holds
I feel
grudges.
like every
Tom
big
Menino
city,
is the same thing.
You almost have to do that.
Yeah,
you're dealing with unions all the time. You're dealing with, so it's like running a country. When you're running a big city, you're mayor of a big city. It's like running a mini country.
Or a union. I mean, you kind of have to be cutthroat. A lot of mayors, you look at them and go, I'm not really impressed with them. They don't tend to be the most articulate guys often. They're kind of like
blue collar guys. They're not aspirational because they're just running a government. It's not like they're going to run for office, with platitudes. So, yeah, the Red Sox were very bright. And I thought they were going to start calling Tom Menino up and asking him what they should do for their lineup. I mean, they embraced him that much and they got whatever they wanted. You don't know. Maybe they did.
Yeah, why not? Maybe he was a big analytics guy.
That's why they had Doug Mirabelli. He was keeping it all in the Italian family.
Exactly. And then remember when he came in and they had the escort from the airport.
That was wild. Only in Boston.
Tim Wakefield. Oh, that was great. That was fantastic.
At 25 are my beloved Boston Celtics, a little bit out of my price range at $3.2 billion. They were purchased in 2002 for $360 million. Nice return on investment for Rick Grossbeck and co. So they're tied at 25. Just to round out the list of basketball teams, in case people are interested, we have the Clippers at 39. They're worth $2.75 billion. Steve Ballmer purchased them in 2014 for $2 billion, which was thought to be about $1 billion more than they were worth.
Right.
I mean, he really overpaid, but because he did, partly because of him, with all these sports, all the teams took off.
Yeah, I mean, and they've gone up in value, right? Like 40% since he bought it 7 years ago. And they don't even have their own arena.
They paid 100% markup on the team.
When you're worth $60 billion at the time, what's the, you're going to start penny pinching at that point? I want the team. Here's the check. Give it to me.
And the NBA was desperate for somebody to come into that situation. And fortunately, he's a very good owner. The players seem to like him. He really wants to win. He's engaged. He watches, it seems like, every game.
Oh, he's courtside. He's courtside. I'm surprised he hasn't been thrown out yet. He's very vocal.
Yeah,
He
and
makes Mark Cuban look very sedate.
the team is increased in value, and I'm going to tell you, Seth, they're going to increase in value a whole lot more because he just bought the rights for the area where the Great Western Forum is from James Dolan, strangely enough. And the Clippers are going to have their own arena, which will be very nice for them and their fans because, I mean, they are in the Lakers' shadow like you cannot believe. I mean, they play in the same freaking arena, and it's mostly filled with Lakers fans, even when the Lakers aren't playing. And considering how wealthy Ballmer is, the new arena is going to be state of the art, really, really nice in downtown Los Angeles. That team's going to be worth a whole lot more money in the next 5 years.
Oh yeah,
by the time that thing's built, they will be worth significant. They'll rocket up this list, and if they win a title,
if they
win
a title, that's the big thing. Yeah, because they haven't even been to a conference finals in their history, which is kind of scary. But yeah, no, he's done wonders with the Clippers, and he was able to go out and get Kawhi Leonard, trade for Paul George, and I think they're a viable roster. I think they're one of the 5 teams that can win a championship this year.
Here's the team that I was a little bit confused as to how low they were on the list, Sap. The Brooklyn Nets coming in at 40, worth $2.65 billion. Again, I don't feel bad for them. But they were one of the teams where the owner actually paid more than what they are worth now. Joseph Tsai, another guy who has dozens of billions of dollars, Chinese investor. He bought them in 2019 from the Russian billionaire who owned them before. So they haven't been owned by an American in quite some time. For $3.2 billion. Their Forbes says they're worth $2.65 billion. I don't think he really cares that he overpaid for them. But considering they're in Brooklyn, they have the beautiful Barclays Center. Why is this team so low on the list?
Well, I just think sometimes when you have a second team in a market that there's only so much you can have. I think that's the same thing with the Clippers being in the same market with the Lakers.
And I'm looking at this plus the Barclays.
Yeah, no, and that's a beautiful arena. It is. I don't know exactly look, with COVID, everything's kind of changed, but what exactly are they booking there compared to Madison Square Garden? And look, the New York
assume everybody goes to both, right? If you're touring and you're a musician,
you go to both.
You probably hit both.
I mean, there's only 20 million people living in Greater New York. You could have, Springsteen will do 10 shows. I don't think he has trouble selling them out. So you can go to both. That will go up. The value of that franchise will go up depending on what they do.
If they win a title, will it go up majorly, do you think? Or just
it will. I mean, that can't hurt. But you got to really look and dive into what the cable TV deals are. That's really where the money is. Right? Because, I mean, the Lakers have a sweet deal with whoever the carrier is. I think it was Comcast or whoever. Which was netting them like $150 million.
Time Warner, I think, is who they have.
Time Warner, yeah, and it was just the time they signed it, they said, "Look, we're not gonna do this unless you keep Kobe." So the Lakers were forced to keep Kobe, which you don't generally want to ever trade an icon like that, but that was part of the deal, and that's what baseball does. It's so much of these teams rely on the cable deals. It's a TV show they're selling. Right. So like Nesson's like, as long as we can be interesting and we have some characters and are a fun team to watch, then, we'll be viable with our network. And same thing happens with the Celtics, with NBC Sports Boston, the Lakers with their carrier, et cetera. Maybe Brooklyn doesn't quite have the setup yet. They will eventually, I'm sure.
The Nets are carried on the Yes Network, owned by the Yankees, as we talked about earlier. And obviously the Knicks are on their own MSG network.
Well, see, there's the thing. So the Nets would be like the Bruins on Nesson. Like, even as we're recording this, the Bruins are playing a late regular season game, which is fairly important, but they're bumped to Nesson Plus because the Bruins only own 20% of Nesson. The Red Sox, which own 80%, are on Nesson. So I'm sure the Yes Network, when there's a conflict, the Yankees are on and Brooklyn is on something else. We see that in Boston with the Sports Hub, right? The Bruins get 98.5 the Sports Hub. The Celtics are also on 98.5 the Sports Hub, but if they're playing at the same time, then they go to what, WROR or whatever else, a secondary station.
That's right.
And the Bruins get the first. The Sports Hub has the Bruins ahead of the Celtics because, quite frankly, the least valuable radio contract in the city and in many cities is basketball. It just people tend to watch basketball on TV more than listen on radio by a wide margin.
Yeah, it goes football, baseball, hockey, basketball in terms of radio contracts. I would. You think baseball higher than football?
In this market in Boston, the Red Sox at one point were getting $18 million a year from EEI, which was a gross overpay. But this was just after the World Series in 2004,
basically,
so they didn't want to
sunk
lose
the
them.
Station.
Yeah, I mean they need the Red Sox to go into the playoffs and make a run to try to get back that money any way they can. Now, obviously, when you have the Red Sox when they were as popular as they were then, that helps your morning show because the metric is okay. You listen to the Red Sox game, shut the radio off, and then you turn it on in the morning, and you got Dennis and Callahan there.
Wow, not for some time, but yes, that was the metric.
But
at the time they signed the deal, that was the thought process.
I'm going back to the mid 2000s. And that's when, the three top guys at EEI were making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
15 years ago. And that was one of the best, if not the best, sports radio stations in the country. It's not even the best in the city anymore by a wide margin. I mean, the Sports Hub destroys them. But yeah, baseball, that contract was way overinflated because at that time, I don't think the Yankees and the Mets, the two teams in the largest market in the country, were making as much from their radio deals as the Red Sox alone. That was a massive overpay.
Yeah, and I think EI is,
it's been adjusted.
They've massively regretted it.
Oh, sure, because, and also and then we'll turn this into a media show, which I'm very comfortable with, but with the Red Sox, the station can't even criticize the Red Sox or criticize the sport of baseball. I mean, you've told me this, and I know guys that work there, same thing. You're getting emails saying, whatever you do, don't criticize baseball, pace of play, and la-di-da, it's great. I mean, that's the beauty of the Sports Hub. I mean, the hosts on the Sports Hub can go after the Celtics, Bruins, and Patriots. No problem.
Yeah, the Red Sox have rabbit ears, the owners do.
So, I think the only time when Kraft got in trouble with the massage parlor, just for the first few days after that, the host was told to kind of back off a little bit. But since, they've been fine to joke about that. I mean, look, Bill Belichick's won 6 Super Bowls, and he gets smashed every day on Felger and Maz. That makes entertaining radio. The Red Sox, they have rabbit ears. So that you're paying all that money, and then on your programs, you can't criticize them. That's not good.
No, we got a memo at EEI when I was working there as a producer saying no more. It wasn't even don't criticize the Red Sox because they essentially fired Kirk Minahan, who was not my favorite person in the world, but certainly his numbers and popularity didn't indicate that he should get fired. But no, because he criticized the Red Sox all the time. So he got more or less fired for that. And amongst other shows that I produced, they said, stop talking about pace of play of baseball. Don't criticize baseball, not even the Red Sox. And you know what? That was a very popular topic for us and remains a very popular topic on radio because a lot of people, sports radio is designed for complaining. And there's nothing easier to complain about than how freaking slow baseball is. So we would have full lines every time we did that. So it was taking away a big topic, especially on slow nights when it's baseball in the middle of baseball season. Sap, you know this. You've been on radio for 100 years. Right around the All-Star game of baseball, there is nothing to talk about. Just nothing. You don't have any sort of picture of what the playoffs are going to look like in baseball. Basketball is long since over, though this year it'll be a little different because they're going into the summer. Football is not, the training camps haven't even started yet. Hockey is long since over. College football, there's nothing to talk. There is nothing. And pace of play was like a godsend. And then they took it away from us. It's like, you can't recap a Red Sox game for 4 hours. You can't do it.
No, I mean, because that's how long they took. And to play the game was 4 hours. So, and then you need to recap what? You go through every pitch that took place? No, you talk macro, right, on radio.
Well, I don't know what the expectation was. That's what, that's why EI is really fucked up, honestly, is because of stuff like that. And because if you're having people who haven't been in the industry and haven't been on air, produced a show, making the decisions of what a show should sound like, that you're not going to be successful. They don't know how you run a show. 4 hours can fly by if you have some great topics. I mean, it could seem like 20 minutes. You can do a 4 hour
Right.
show, but it can also seem like 24 hours if you have nothing
Right.
to talk about. And the lines, no one's calling and stuff like that. And in the middle of the summer, it is brutal. And to take away something that people actually want to talk about was a terrible decision. But and that doesn't just come from me. Yeah, again, the Red Sox are sensitive, and there are a lot of teams. The Knicks, and it comes from ownership.
Oh,
The Knicks are extremely sensitive. I would imagine whatever their radio partner is there probably cannot criticize the team as much as they deserve.
I think I'm not sure how that works, and they'll talk basketball in New York because it's a great basketball market. I'd have to do a little research on that, but yeah, you
Sap, I'd
probably
say
have a point there.
if you're in New York and you're ripping the team, Dolan just won't give you access to the team anymore. He'll
Won't
stop.
give you access. Yeah, and
He'll
look,
stop anybody from doing the post games. He won't let any of the players go on. So that's what I'm saying. It's more along that line as opposed to like what the Red Sox did to step in and try to alter programming is beyond the pale. I've never even heard
ridiculous.
of that.
That's ridiculous.
But someone like Dolan, and there's lots of sensitive owners out there. It's not just James Dolan. He's just the biggest example of it. If you're sensitive and you rip the team, they have the right and they will just pull your access.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, John Henry drove over to the Sports Hub, 9-10 years ago?
Yeah.
And sat in with Felger and Mavs. That's not even...
It was bizarre.
The station. Yeah, that's not even the station that carries the Red Sox games. It's the other station, but he found the need to go on there. No, it's interesting. Dolan, and again, he's got the most valuable franchise in all of the NBA, the third most valuable franchise in all of sports. And just being in New York is enough
Sap,
to get you there.
Didn't the Jets pull access from Francesa because he kept giving them crap? And I remember Darrelle Revis had a very contentious interview, and I think that they just stopped having players go on the show.
Yeah, which is look, you can't have a good talk show and be beholden to the team. It just doesn't work. I mean, that's why the guys who do talk radio don't go to games, or when they go to games, they go and sit in the stands and buy their tickets. They don't mingle in the locker room after a game, because then all of a sudden you become friendly with a player and now you got to go criticize him the next day. That's why I've always given, Shaughnessy and Borges credit, because they were the two most toxic columnists in the city. They'd write a really harsh column and they were back the next day at the ballpark of the arena to face it. Talk radio, the beauty of it is you sit behind the microphone, bloviate about all the ills of the team, even if you make up many of them, and you don't have to deal with seeing the players. So yeah, you don't want to get tied down into that. That it doesn't make good radio. You can't have that.
We've veered way off topic, but it's interesting.
That's okay.
We've both been in the industry. You've been in it for a lot longer than me, but I've been in it for a decade now and experienced plenty of crazy things that go along with it. Especially at this time, it's changing a lot because everything's going to what we're doing now: podcasting, digital, a lot less terrestrial. But there's still, titans of the industry who are getting paid a ton of money. Felger and Mavs both make a lot of money doing what they do. Mike Francesa has come and gone as he's sort of decided, and he makes plenty of money. If you're in one of those big markets and you're doing radio, I don't care if it's, there's still commercials. It still might be a little bit antiquated. A lot of people still listen, and it's a big deal. Anyways, the last basketball team on this top 50 list was the Dallas Mavericks, tied at 47. They're worth $2.45 billion. I think we all expected them to be in that list as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got the most visible owner in the league, one of my favorite owners in all of sports. They've won a championship. And again, a pretty good-sized market. That's a top 10 market, Dallas. I think around 7, 8. So that helps. And that's a great sports city. I know it's Cowboy-centric, but, the Rangers have a new ballpark. The Stars went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and the Mavs are always in contention, and now they've got a great young star in Luka Doncic. So I'm not surprised they were there.
Yeah, and he's sunk a lot of money into that team, and they've been pretty consistently good, with the exception of a few years, and then they got Luka Doncic. Sap, the last question I want to ask you before we get out is: we're talking about all these brands, and some are regional, like you mentioned, and some are national, some are international. How many international brands do the Celtics, not the Celtics, does the NBA have, and how many national brands do they have?
International, I would say it's one. It's the Lakers.
I would agree.
International. Now, there was probably a time when the Houston Rockets were, when they had Yao Ming.
Yeah,
I
except
would
for
say
less international, more just China and the United
just
States.
China. Oh, that's a pretty good sized market.
Yeah, decent.
If you're going to have just one, go with the country that has 1.3 billion people in it. So it's definitely the Lakers. Then nationally, the Lakers, the Celtics still have a national brand, especially
Yep.
among older people. I'd say the Bulls because of Jordan.
I think the Bulls were an international team in the 90s. That
Oh,
as
absolutely.
international as it gets. I mean, literally, you could
Yeah.
a hovel in Sudan, you could find a Michael Jordan fan.
Who didn't know Michael Jordan? They were wearing his sneakers. Yeah, but I think nationally they still have a brand because of Jordan. Look, the Cleveland Browns for years were not good, but they actually had a national brand too because of Jim Brown.
Right.
Now we're talking about all-time greats. I mean, we're talking about Jim Brown and Michael Jordan. So
do the Knicks have a national brand?
I would say somewhat, not quite at the level
I think
of
it's
the
just because
Celtics,
New York's
Lakers,
so
Bulls.
big that they just have a lot of fans because
By
New York's so
itself,
big.
Yeah, by itself, it can be a brand unto itself.
So you could really two? Is it just those two teams? I mean, I know you said Chicago.
No, it's still Chicago, and it's still the Lakers, the Celtics. So now you've got East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, Golden State, but that's
starting to
new.
happen with Golden State.
It's new because of Steph Curry, but I think that's more Steph Curry than anybody. But the Bulls were because of Jordan, and the Lakers are the one that they always get the star, so it kind of goes hand in hand. So they keep that train rolling. And the Celtics,
right? Because people root for players, especially if you don't live in an NBA market, right?
Absolutely,
you root for players.
Absolutely. Whether you're 10 or 58, like myself. So yeah, I mean, the Celtics almost have the same feel of the Packers. Like there was so much great success, especially in the 60s. So you got guys that are in their 70s that live in Indiana that are probably Celtic fans. Sure. Obviously then there's a Larry Bird connection. So there's that. So no, the Celtics are still a national brand, but the Lakers are the only international brand. And like you said, a good point, Jed. With Jordan, the Bulls were, intergalactic brand. I mean, they were probably Mars' favorite team or Venus as well.
Yeah, I do wonder. You have to have that sort of combination of winning and having that star player also. The Spurs, they were winning. They never became a national or international brand. No. They had a star, but he wasn't personable. The Warriors, because Steph Curry is so fun to watch, are becoming a national brand. And, he's world famous, Steph Curry. But it's not just winning. It's a combo.
You made a great point about the Spurs. They're probably the third most popular team in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Behind Dallas and Houston. Houston sucks right now, right? But, with Harden there for 8 years making the playoffs, they were a real appealing
Houston's
team.
The biggest city in Texas, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. San Antonio's, there's so many huge cities in Texas. It's kind of scary. Like Austin is huge. Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, El Paso. There's a bunch of huge cities
like
here.
A country.
It really is. I mean, so yeah, that's a good point about the Spurs. They've won, but the logo has something to do with it too. The Bulls logo is cool. I know it's very popular in the Spanish community because of the bull. Because the bull is,
right. Chicago has beloved. A heavy Latin community in Chicago,
and Chicago is one of the coolest cities in America. So, and then you put Michael Jordan there. That kind of all worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of factors that go into it. History, players, winning, logo. You're right. I mean, the Spurs logo, it's fine, but it's it's not like really trendy. It's a kind of an arc with the letters in it, and you got a spur at the end. Even the Lakers logo isn't even that great. The color scheme's great.
The color scheme is great. Yeah, that's what it is. The purple. I mean,
the Celtics have a better logo than the Lakers, but the color scheme, the purple and gold's awesome. So the Celtics stuff is great too. But one's LA, and it's the stars and stuff like that. But yeah, it's interesting. Football, we talk a lot about of national brands because it's really just popular in the United States. There's a lot of national brand teams. Not so many international. Baseball, you kind of got the one. Basketball, you could argue has the most international teams. If you want to throw the Celtics in that mix, I think you're right. It's probably just the Lakers, but I'm sure some people would argue the Celtics are an internationally loved team as well.
In certain areas, yeah, I would say in certain areas. I mean, not to be glib, but I would assume in Ireland they're fairly popular.
Probably.
Or they maybe hate them. I don't know. I mean, I can never tell sometimes because I run into Irish folks and I say, "You guys love you too," and they go, "We hate them." I'm like,
I'm
okay,
sure the Bucks are very
makes
popular
no
in
sense.
Greece, so
Yes. Oh yeah. Now with Giannis, exactly, and that may have something to do with it too. Sure. And look, and just think of the continent of Africa, how much that's going to grow with the NBA. That's
yeah,
going
and
to
they're
be the
dying to have an
untapped
Indian
market.
star too.
Exactly. Yep.
So
An Indian star, or now you've got Embiid is from Africa. Giannis is from Greece by way of Africa.
right.
So yeah, you get all these interesting. Basketball's huge in Spain and in Italy as well.
Yeah,
and France.
I mean, we talk about this. It's growing. It's only going to grow in popularity, and these numbers. If you look at the numbers on the Forbes list, everything indicates that all these teams are just continue to get more and more valuable as they go on. But there is a distinction between being extremely valuable, which you can't lose money owning a team right now, but to be at the level of the Yankees or the Lakers or the Cowboys, that's a little something. There's a little something extra there.
Yes, it's the size of the city has a lot to do with it, and then the championship DNA and other factors.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap it up. This was actually a really interesting conversation. I didn't think we were going to head in some of these directions, but I do like veering off into random places. Sap, anything coming up from you this week, article wise?
No, I'm taking a little time away. I was getting ready to do an Aaron Rodgers column, and then I think that something's going to change with that. I think they're just going to offer him a boatload of money, and he's going to go back to Green Bay, which is kind of boring. But I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. He is going to be on an episode of The Conners.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Is the ABC show without Roseanne.
Yes.
He's playing the host of Jeopardy in an episode of that.
That's about as close as he's going to get to that permanent role.
I don't know. He had better ratings than Anderson Cooper and Joe Buck.
I know he doesn't care, Sap, but if he's the host of Jeopardy, I know the schedule works out. If he's the host and they don't win the Super Bowl, he is going to get killed because of the Jeopardy thing. Killed
by who?
By everybody.
By
every ESPN personality, every talk show host. Sap, you know how it goes. If he's doing another high-profile gig, he's not paying enough attention to football. Yes, he will get killed.
Skip Bayless will attack him. Mike Felger will attack him. You will. You see how I put you in the same class with Felger and Skip Bayless? Maybe Coward, because Coward goes back and forth with him. ESPN, for the most part, oh my God, Stephen A. Smith likes him more than I do.
He'll kill him.
No, Stephen A. Smith is incapable.
With the Jeopardy thing, he'd kill him.
Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, Nick Wright, myself. Well, Nick Wright's more a LeBron guy, obviously, than an Aaron Rodgers guy. Nick Wright now is the Mahomes guy. But yeah, Shannon Sharp, myself, and Stephen A. Smith, incapable of saying anything bad about Aaron Rodgers. Although I have criticized him. I could have played better in the NFC Championship game. I'll go there. You know who criticized him is our boss, Ian Glendon, who's, has to have every conversation go back to Tom Brady for some reason.
Yeah, he's the Tom Brady defender of the universe.
Whoa.
I mean, unbelievable.
My Lord.
Eventually Sap will have a column coming down about Aaron Rodgers. I'm
At
sure
some point.
I'll disagree with. But you can find our podcast wherever podcasts are found. Again, we're the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Ian Glendon and Full Press Coverage. Find Sap on Twitter at JohnSap25, JOHNSAP25. Myself at Jet Striar, JETSTRIAR. We will make it nice and easy for you. Tweet out the links to the video version of this and the audio version. Pick your poison. And we'll be back later in the week talking some more NBA news, getting into an interesting debate about if we think it's easier to win a Super Bowl or an NBA championship. So that will be fun. So make sure you keep on the lookout for that. Until then, we'll see you later, everybody.